These are the warm-ups for lesson 3.4, day 1, dividing fractions. So I would suggest pausing this video here, writing these problems down and solving it. Then we'll go through them together. The first problem is 5/9 times 2/3. So remember, when we multiply fractions, we always want to see if we can cross simplify. I look at the 5 and the 3, the 9 and the 2. And in this case, we cannot cross simplify. So we just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. 5 times 2 is 10. 9 times 3 is 27. Can't simplify that any further, so there's my answer. Number 2 is 9/10 times -5. Well, to change -5 into a fraction, I write it over 1. And then I look to see if I can cross simplify. And in this case, I can. 5 goes into -5 -1 times. 5 goes into 10 twice. Now I can multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. 9 times -1 is -9. 2 times 1 is 2. And then I just have to simplify. 2 goes into -9, -4 times. -4 times 2 is -8. So to get to -9, there's 1 left over, and I always keep that same denominator. -4 and 1/2. Jeremy got a score of 16/20 on his first quiz and 8/10 on his second quiz. Which quiz has a higher score? So in order to compare these, we need to change them either both to fractions or both to decimals. I am going to take 8/10 and change that into a fraction, which would be 8/10, right? We write it just like it sounds, 8/10. And then I'm comparing that to 16/20. But remember, before I can compare, they have to have a common denominator. Well, I can get these to have a common denominator of 20. 16/20 and then 8/10, I multiply both of those by 2, and I get 16/20. So in this case, he got an equal score on both. And then this next problem, identify all sets to which each number belongs. -50/25. Well, it's a fraction, so we for sure know that it's rational. But 50/25 simplified is 2. So this is really -2. And we know that -2 is an integer. And if it's an integer, then it's also rational. -2 is not natural, and it's not whole because it's a negative. Then we have -3.8. Remember that decimals that end are rational. This is day 1 of lesson 3.4. Lesson 3.4 is all about dividing fractions. So a couple important vocab words that you should know. The first one is reciprocals. Reciprocals are two numbers whose product is 1. So an example of that would be 3 and 1/3. Because to write 3 as a fraction, we write that as 3/1. And then if we multiply by its reciprocal of 1/3, we get 3/3, which is just 1. So basically, to find a reciprocal, all you have to do is take your number and flip it around. So the reciprocal for 3/4 is just 4/3. So again, I just take that fraction and I flip it around. Mixed numbers must be changed to improper first before we can find the reciprocal. So -2 and 2/5. We're going to use our strategy of MAD. Multiply, add, keep the denominator. Because I have this negative, I am just going to keep it off to the side, and I'm just going to multiply as if it weren't there. 2 times 5 plus 2, keep the denominator. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, keep my denominator of 5. So I have -12/5. The reciprocal of -12/5 would be -5/12. You could also write that as -5/12. You could also write it with the negative on the denominator. All of those are the exact same thing. Multiplicative inverses is just another way to say reciprocals. So to give the multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal of 8, first I have to put it over 1 to make it a fraction. Now that it's a fraction, I can flip it around. Instead of 8 over 1, 1 over 8. Then for negative 2/5, again, the multiplicative inverse, all I have to do is flip it around. Instead of negative 2 over 5, it's going to be negative 5 over 2. So just to recap, reciprocal, multiplicative inverses, all you have to do is flip them around. So to divide by a fraction, there's a couple different ways to remember. You multiply by the reciprocal. Dividing by fractions is easy as pie. Flip the second and multiply. Or, hopefully you listened to my song that I posted on Schoology. To divide by a fraction, here's a tip: keep, change, flip. We keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, and flip the second. So on your sheet or on your notes for dividing fractions, I want you to write keep, change, flip. Just to show you how or why this works. You do not have to do this on your homework or anything. I just want to show you. So it says you can use a model to find the quotient of 2 divided by 1/4. So if you draw 2 equal squares, which is what I have here. So I have my 2 equal squares. There's the bell. Then we have to divide that by 4. So cut them into fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When we divide them into fourths, we get 8 fourths. So 2 divided by 1/4 would be 8. That's why when we do keep, change, flip, we get 8 as an answer. So here's some examples. You'll definitely want to have these in your notes. 5/6 divided by 7/9. To divide by a fraction, here's a tip: keep, change, flip. We keep 5/6, we change to multiplication, and we flip the second. So we get 9/7. Now, since we have multiplication, we can cross simplify. So 5 and 7, nothing we can do here, but for 6 and 9, I can divide both by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And now I can multiply the numerators, multiply my denominators. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 7 is 14. To change this back into a mixed number, I asked myself, okay, how many times does 14 go into 15? It goes in 1 time. 14 times 1 is 14, so there's 1 more to get to 15. And I always keep my denominator. So my answer is 1 and 1/14. Oops. Then the next one is negative 9/2 divided by negative 3/2. To divide by a fraction, here's a tip: keep, change, flip. We keep negative 9/2, change to multiplication, and flip. So instead of negative 3/2, it's going to be negative 2/3. Now, since I have multiplication, I can look for opportunities to cross simplify. So negative 9 and 3. 3 goes into 3 once, goes into negative 9, negative 3 times. I don't want to forget about that negative sign. Then 2 and negative 2, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into negative 2, negative 1 time. Now I multiply the numerators. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, and 1 times 1 is 3. 3/1 is the same as just 3. Then we have 1/6 divided by negative 3. Well, to change negative 3 into a fraction, all I have to do is put it over 1. And then I'm going to keep, change, flip. So I keep 1/6, change to multiplication, and flip instead of negative 3/1, negative 1/3. Now I look to see if I can cross simplify. 1 and 3, 6 and negative 1, nope. So now I'm going to multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 6 times 3 is 18. I can't simplify that any further, so there's my answer. Negative 1 over 18. All right, real life problem here. Your cat eats 7/8 of a pound of cat food every week. How long will a 26-pound bag last? So we know that the bag is 26 pounds, and we're trying to divide that into 7/8 to figure out how long this is going to take to eat. So first I'm going to change 26 into a fraction by putting it over 1. Then to divide by a fraction, here's a tip. Keep, change, flip. Keep 26 over 1, change to multiplication, and then I flip. Instead of 7 over 8, 8 over 7. Now that we have multiplication, I look to see if I can cross simplify. 1 and 8, 26 and 7. Fortunately, there's nothing we can do. So our numerator is 26 times 8. Which is 208. And our denominator is 1 times 7, which is 7. Then I have to figure out how many times 7 goes into 208. Well, let's see. 7 times 10 is 70. So I know 7 times 10 is 70. 7 times 20 then would be 140. 7 times 30 would be 210, which is just a little bit above, so I know that it's going to be 29. 29 times 7 is 203. So it goes in 29 times, and then 7 times 29 is 203. So to get from 203 to 208, we have 5 left. So we have 5/7. So the question says, how long will it last? So it'll last 29 and 5/7 days. You could also, for this case, it'd probably just be 29 days because you don't want to short your cat on some food. Okay, and super quick, just if you review, multiplicative inverse, remember, is the reciprocal. You just flip it over. So the multiplicative inverse of negative 6/7 would be negative 7 over 6. Just flip it around. 3 and 3/5, we change it to improper first by using MAD. Multiply, add, keep the denominator. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 is 18. Keep the denominator of 5. And then the reciprocal of that, I just flip it around, so it's 5/18. And then the reciprocal of 5/8, I just flip it around, so it's 8